Well, Wendy, thank you so much for being with us today. I greatly appreciate it. For everybody that's not familiar with you, why don't you just introduce yourself and your involvement with BizWorld?
So I am really happy to be here and a part of this world. I was a classroom teacher. I taught gifted education for 30 years. And for about 20 of that, I was teaching BizWorld in my classroom and loved it from the beginning. Loved every iteration, every time it improved or changed at all. It was just better. And eventually I got ready to make a career change, and BizWorld reached out in that moment and I got to come on board. So now I do education, community, and outreach for BizWorld, and I love everything about it. I get to work with teachers and help them implement in their classrooms. Out of school time operators that do programs, I get to help them with how to implement it in that setting. Camps, doing it in a couple of days. It's just, it's such a great program, and the people behind it have such a great heart for getting entrepreneurship into different settings and into America's youth. So, and even more than America. So that's where I'm here.
That's wonderful. How long did you actually teach BizWorld for before joining the actual BizWorld team?
So, over 20 years. I'm not sure exactly when I started it, but it started with a big old teacher's manual in a big cardboard box with a sticker across the front that said BizWorld. And it had to have been around 2004 or five. So, and the BizWorld people have always been so warm that as a teacher, I felt that sense of community, and I felt like I could call them and I can, give a name of a person that I talk to, and they're actively involved with my needs. So it's just been a great community, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's so unique that you're a teacher, an educator,
Yeah.
implementing a BizWorld program curriculum for 20 plus years.
Right.
And now you get to actually help to build up BizWorld and distribute it also sort of to the masses. And so
Right.
interesting that it started out, like you said, like a big cardboard box, BizWorld logo
Yeah.
on it. What has it evolved to? What does the actual BizWorld programming curriculum look like today?
So interestingly enough, this world was undergoing a rebranding and a rewriting of the BizWorld curriculum to kind of um, just refresh it. And that was the same moment that I was coming in. So I got to have a hand in some of that and to look at what happened, what I knew happened in my classroom and what was showing up in the curriculum and to tweak and modify. I got to work with other teachers who are implementing it. So BizWorld Plus has um, improvements, modifications, suggestions for ways to differentiate it. If you're in, a once a week classroom versus an everyday classroom, if you're in a middle school classroom or high school classroom versus an elementary, it just, it still is, what is the entrepreneurial mindset? What are some examples of that? How, as an individual, can you become an entrepreneur? And what does that process look like? So it still provides all those tools, but it also provides ways to kind of help the teacher not make it to make it more open ended so that no matter who is teaching it, it works within your framework and it works for your students. And what I love most is your students can take it to whatever level they're ready for. That's the real magic of it. And as a gifted teacher, that's what I was always looking for, was something that was open ended so that my kids could take it as far as they wanted to go.
It's so great to think about a program that is open-ended and
Yes.
flexible. So an educator can sure take it. It's like a business in a box curriculum,
Right.
but that has all these different pathways and
Yeah.
expansions. They can make it their own while also Would you say that BizWorld programming saves educators time also?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that I was thinking about with we're in presenting the new BizWorld Plus in places. It it takes that heavy lift off for someone who understands how to be a consumer and how to look at marketing and things like that, which are kind of something that I'm just interested in and have always been interested in. Um, it doesn't presume that a classroom teacher knows all that. And it explains step by step what you as the educator need to know before you present and what you as an educator need to know as you go along the process with your students. So I can honestly say, as an educator, I got a little better at the curriculum every time I taught it because I learned from the kids, they learned from me, I learned from the curriculum, I learned from the resources that were provided in the curriculum. It just it just made me a better teacher every time I did it.
That's amazing
Yeah,
to say that like it actually made you a better teacher while obviously helping your students.
right.
For people that aren't super familiar with BizWorld, what's maybe the simplest way that you would explain what BizWorld is to a busy teacher?
It's hard to put in a single statement. BizWorld is a problem-based program that allows teachers to offer students a pathway to discover things about themselves as future citizens.
Program entrepreneurship based curriculum that's
Yeah,
allowing students to discover things about themselves as future citizens.
I mean, it's great. It is. Yeah, I just love it.
Yeah.
BizWorld is an entrepreneurship program that is open-ended and can be used in many situations, and again, takes the heavy lift off of teachers to there's a lot of front loading, and then you just stand back and watch the process in play and let it play.
That's wonderful. When you say there's a lot of front loading, what does that look like? I'm just curious as far as what is the actual commitment that a teacher might be looking at?
Yeah. That I think to me, that's the most daunting part, and that's the part where I try to work with teachers most, because you really have to kind of plan a timeline for it. And not that a timeline will be perfect, but you need to know that you will need a set amount of class time over the course. I think we're designed for like roughly 20 hours of program instruction. As a gifted teacher, I went a lot deeper and we took a lot longer than that. But in after school programs, you can actually you can condense that down if you need to. So the setting will depend. You need to know about when you're starting and about when you're finishing. And then you need to plan for a final culminating sales event with Visual Plus. And that's a little different if we were talking about Ideate or Impact Challenge. So for BizWorld Plus, you will start with an introduction to what is business, and you will explain and help your children come to the understanding of what a business is, what a product or a service is, what what qualities an entrepreneur has and or needs to cultivate, and then you go through the process of designing a product and understanding what's involved with that, and then producing the product and understanding the costs and the process that's involved with that, doing public speaking. You're going to be presenting to a venture capitalist and understanding the monetary needs of your product and your business, and then going through marketing and developing that part. So obviously, and then getting ready for your sale. So obviously, that's going to take some time. It's not something that you can just walk blindly into, in my opinion, to do it well, you're going to want to know I'm going to take 2 weeks for this and I'm going to meet every day for 2 hours. Or I'm going to take 4 months for this and I'm going to meet once a week for 2 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour or whatever, and that's the front loading. But once you get past that, the students form companies and they run themselves because they want to be profitable. So, then your job is to help guide conversations within a group or kind of encourage a group that's stuck someplace on some problem solving techniques they might need to do. You do need to have some idea ahead of time. Another front loading thing is what kind of products you're going to encourage them to make because you're going to need the raw materials for that. And it can be as simple as string and make bracelets, or it can be as complex as them actually developing food or jewelry or a space saver item for desks in a classroom. I mean, it can be anything that they want to do as long as you have the space for them to do it.
Right. So there is the most, if I dare I say, the most daunting part is this upfront planning,
Yes,
outline. And then after that, it truly is one of these, you know, what do they say? Student-led
it is.
programs.
It is. And that is the part that's so magical because once the students own it, you just have to get out of their way and let them grow. It's great.
That's that's so great. What do you think surprises teachers and educators most when they actually start to run a BizWorld program?
Um, the thing I hear most is from teachers who say, I couldn't believe when this student, who's usually so quiet, spoke up, took over, commanded, it does a lot of development. I had a student who was very young for our group and gifted, but not as soc- socially developed, let me just say, as some of the other students in his company. But when we got to doing the marketing part, he took over and he had the tech skills to build beautiful commercials with music and graphics and movement, all this stuff. I- I- And his whole group just stopped and watched what he had created and were just blown away by this person that couldn't make, the bracelet to save his life, but he was on the technology part. So it's just a matter, again, of letting students see a little bit of who they might be able to become, take ownership of parts of the management. One of the things I love about this world is everybody on the company team has a role. They have a defined job. They are in charge of some part. And so every child on at least one of the sessions is the one in charge. And he understands that, or she. And the rest of the group respects that as well. And so, everybody gets a chance to be in charge and make a decision that in the end impacts what your company was able to do during the simulation.
So great, like letting students' unique abilities shine while also teaching them to bring out abilities that they have never had. I constantly hear the stories about the shy kid, right? That
Yes.
didn't speak up, that didn't participate, but
Hmm.
through BizWorld, all of a sudden they are leading
Yes.
teams or
It's
they're
crazy.
pitching their businesses.
Yeah. 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 Oh, the pitching. I mean, pitch day is always exciting. And for the kids, it's very nerve wracking and they're all anxious about it. And then once they start, they put so much intentionally into the planning that they understand at the end of it, they're like, oh, that went well. Let's do that again. And next time, let's do, something different. So yeah.
Wow, so you've
Children
really built
aren't
a lot.
often asked to present to adults, and it's great when you ask them to and you prepare them for it. It's really kind of, well, it's certainly empowering, but sometimes it can be life changing for those students that don't normally speak up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One big thing that I love about BizWorld is that um, it teaches life skills through entrepreneurship education. And so, would you say is BizWorld curriculum made to teach kids how to be entrepreneurs, and it's only for students that want to run their own businesses?
Oh, absolutely not. No. And that again is the magic of it. It is helping them understand that part of the world that really isn't explained normally in school. I mean, you learn a little bit about, like I said, marketing. You become a better consumer because you're more aware of things. I think a student becomes more adept at sidestepping things that are calling to them inappropriately, if that makes sense. They're just more savvy about how the world is impacting them, how outside forces are impacting them. And I mean, that's important for everybody. It also helps them understand a bit about stocks because we get into how a business is funded. So they understand a little more about how their money matters and how, paying for things, why there are taxes and, all that. It's nuanced, but all of that is there. And you take it with your students to the level that they're ready for.
So this year at BizWorld, your all's theme, if I can call it that, is dream big and dare to fail.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what does it mean to you all and everybody at BizWorld?
For me personally, it's about appreciating that I'm not doing everything perfectly the first time. There's a lot of perfectionism in a gifted classroom, and there's a lot of perfectionism in a regular classroom, both on the teacher's part and on the student's part. And if we can understand that every attempt is a win, um, I think even if you don't reach the achievement that you expected to or that you were hoping for, if you can take that and look at it and analyze it to get the message or the learning that you can get, then you have failed, but it hasn't ruined anything. It's a good thing. Um, I, I think that's as a company, we're doing the same thing. We're launching this new BizWorld Plus. We're working on a couple of other exciting things, and all the programs that we have had in place we've got to move them forward. And every step may not be a perfect step, but every step is an opportunity for us to grow a little bit more.
That's great, right? It isn't a failure isn't an ending point, right? It
No,
is
right.
constant learning, right? Why do you think it is in today's society that so many students are afraid to raise their hands, afraid to, dare I say, fail?
Mm, that is so important. An interesting idea. I always taught in my classroom about the growth mindset. And whenever a student said, "Oh, I can't do that," we had a place in the room that was growth mindset or fixed mindset. And I'd say, which one are you doing right now when you tell yourself you can't? And I think with all the emphasis on testing and test scores, we have gotten into a really bad spiral of you have to meet this benchmark. Everybody has to meet this benchmark. It's very important. It's very important. So everybody's afraid of not making that benchmark to the point that they're afraid to speak up. They were afraid to have a wrong answer. And in my classroom, we cultivated a sense of, again, every attempt is a win. Let's see. Oh, you have this answer? Well, we used to do four corners thing where people, I would give a random question and I would say, are you for it or against it? And if they were very strongly for it, they would sit in one corner. And if they were kind of for it, but they were swayable, they sit in another corner. And if they were completely against it, they sit in another corner. And then we'd have a conversation and people would move from one side to another. You, you have to be open. You never know where something could go if you give it the opportunity. And I think that's part of that dare to fail. Oh my dear, but what if you succeed? What if you fly? What if something fabulous comes from something that you were afraid of? You got to try.
That's wonderful. I love that. And so while BizWorld programming is being taught, what does failure actually look like?
Oh, we have plenty of failure. It's world class. And it's all good. So failure can be as small as at the beginning, especially with my younger BizWorld students. Every student in the company had a product idea that they wanted the company to manufacture. And failure could come when they realized that everybody else didn't love their idea. And in fact, another idea was actually better. So they would fail in their product pitch to the group. It could be much bigger in that the company decided to put a whole lot of resource, time, and investment capital into a product that nobody else wanted or that was poorly made. So then the failure would be when you go to market, you wouldn't have enough materials to sell and they wouldn't be something that people wanted to buy. So you would not make a profit. You would have a loss. That's a failure. But is it? Really, first off, we're using simulated money, so nobody's lost anything in that respect. But also, what did you learn? Oh, we should have done some research on what people wanted, or we should have refined our ability to manufacture this product, or we should have chosen different products. So all of that, again, we kind of debrief at the end and we have conversations and it's a learning experience. So in the real world, you're going to do things that don't turn out the way you expected them to turn out. And what do you do with that? Do you just go and hide in a corner? No, of course not. You have to get up tomorrow and do something different. So you have to take your analysis of what happened and figure out how to make it better.
It's the analysis of what happened,
Yeah.
figure out how to make it better. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that all of these quote unquote failures inside of visual programs is they're learning moments.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Some are more
Fantastic.
public than others.
Mm.
But, all of them, I mean, my little group that had the technology wizard that made commercials, part of the learning the day that he got to show off his commercials was he got respect from not only his company, but his classmate, because everybody watches everybody's commercials. And they were like, oh, when you did this with the green screen, how did you do that? So they're learning from each other and he's getting a little good feeling, in his heart and they're getting respect. I promise you the next time somebody's going to use green screen, they're going to him and asking him for points and best practices. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Wendy, looking back at your time with BizWorld when you were an educator or now, on the team. So, looking at your time with BizWorld, what's a moment that made you feel and think like, wow, this is why we do this. This is what makes it so worth it.
Here's my latest one. I have a student who is now a high school teacher. And I just heard from his mom that he's written a book about how to set your whole class up as a problem-based class. And everything you teach is problem-based. Yes. And so I'm friends with his mom and I reached out to her and I said, well, I'd like to think that his world experience kind of colored some of that. And she said, oh, yes, absolutely. He said that was one of the things that as a child he remembered and he wanted that feeling in his classroom. So not only is he doing that, but he has written a book for other educators about how to do that successfully. So yes, I have ordered the book. I haven't gotten it yet. I just had this happen last week. That's why we do what we do.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I feel it's so few and far between where anybody, I was about to say educators, like when
Yeah.
you get to hear about so far down the line the impact that you made. And this story is showing directly how, of course, yourself as a
Right.
teacher, but then the BizWorld program
Yeah.
shaped potentially somebody's entire life and now how
Right.
they're helping shape others' lives.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's very gratifying. Yeah. Makes things worth it.
House
Makes the hard days worth it.
makes the hard days worth it.
Yeah.
Thinking back, are there any memories and stories of students in the visual program that surprised you?
I'm trying to think of there's so many things that come to mind. So we've had a couple of things happen that were kind of funny over the years. So BizWorld, the simulation in my classroom, I had a handful of students come back to me after we were finished with the simulation. And this was early when BizWorld, when I was new to BizWorld, so long ago. And some students came to me and they said, we really liked our BizWorld experience and we would like to open a school store. In, this is elementary school. I mean, in high school, you have school stores, but in elementary schools, that really isn't always a thing. So they wanted to do that. And they had on their own come up with a little slideshow that explained why they thought our school should have a school store and how they would like to get an investment from somebody so that they could buy all the materials. So they understood exactly what was involved there. And we talked about it. They came to me with that and we had a conversation and they kind of decided that our principal would be the person to maybe make that investment, which after the presentation she did, and we were able to open a school store. It ran, I mean, we made enough money to send kids to space camp on scholarship. Every year all of our profits went to, we took a grade level to space camp, which is in our backyard. So we get one more student that didn't think they could afford to go with the school store profits. So fast forward, that school actually closed and we opened a brand new school and my rolling school store moved with me. But it was a much bigger school. Everything was much busier and I just had not put together the school store for the new building. And so it was in a closet. So I did BizWorld. And I had a little group of students after BizWorld that came to me and they said, we think we need to have a school store. And we think we could sell these products. And I think we could make enough money so that we could do maybe, help somebody on a scholarship to do something or buy something for the school. Or I don't know. I played dumb. They didn't know I had this thing in the closet. And it had been enough years that the population that had been in the old school, thanks to COVID, nobody knew there was a school store. So they decided that they wanted to pitch this to the principal of our school. And she was just as blown away as the former principal of the former school was by what these children had come together and done on their own. And she said, of course we should. So we have another school store at the second school now. And I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't happen all over the place. But it surprised me because you don't expect that quick a turnaround on something that you've done in the classroom. But it was like within weeks. They took the idea, they debriefed after our big sales bazaar, and they thought about how they could use those skills in another way that would be enjoyable and important and meaningful. And boom, there they were.
And real world application of
Yes.
learning
Yes.
almost instantly.
Yes. Yes. And I will say, in both cases, the once the initial excitement was wore off and the plans began to being put into play, they always do want to know what their salary is going to be.
No
And I
worries.
don't pay them, just to be clear. We do not
Sure,
pay them.
sure.
But there's always a moment where they think, yes, now I'm going to get really paid money.
Uh,
But that's okay. They get to that later in their lives. They'll get paid.
Definitely. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. I love that. Thanks for sharing,
Yes.
Wendy. I'm curious, thinking towards educators in a classroom, what's one thing that teachers are really struggling with right now?
Well, a lot of what I'm hearing is there's very strict pacing guides and very strict curriculum that teachers are allowed time to do in their classroom, and there's no time to do something else. So I think that's a really tough spot for them to be in. I was always fortunate in my gifted classroom that we, as a gifted team, discussed and kind of made up what we were going to be doing as curriculum. So I had the flexibility to do this. But in a classroom, now in a CTE classroom, a technology classroom, I think this fits well with what they're doing. But it also fits in a math classroom. It also fits in a language arts classroom because you're writing, you're speaking, and you're analyzing and you're making persuasive arguments. I mean, there's so much that you could do. I actually taught it with a team of fifth grade teachers one year in their classrooms, and they had their social studies teacher talked about the stock market aspect of it and how that works. They talked about the Great Depression and how all of that impacted, which was right in their fifth grade curriculum. The math teacher talked about percentages and taxes and salaries and stock, all of that kind of stuff. Then the language arts teacher did the persuasive arguments and public speaking and um, I mean, we talked about what our products were going to be and what planning talent. We talked about what materials you need and what the steps were going to be. So it really can fit into any classroom if the teachers have the flexibility to understand what their standards are that they need to meet and then look through our standards and make sure they're hitting those. We hit them. They just have to have the faith of their convictions and explain that sometimes to an administrator. And administrators, once you've invited them in to be the venture capitalist a couple of times, you'll have buy in because they will see for themselves what level these children are thinking on.
Wonderful. So it
Yeah.
sounds to me that, one of the biggest problems that educators are facing is such strict timelines and such
Yeah.
strict curriculums. But if I'm hearing you correctly, BizWorld is checking the boxes that
Yes.
educators are made to check in these curriculums.
Yes. Absolutely. In a way that you'll have to pry the children away from it when when you're done with a lesson. So it's not like your regular math sheet. It's a little more fun, but they're still learning
Wow.
just as much.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. Well, Wei, I greatly, greatly appreciate it. One thing actually that I'm curious about is project-based learning is really a hot subject these days.
Mhm.
Can you explain to
Yay.
us what project-based learning is and if BizWorld relates to that at all?
Yes. So absolutely. Project based learning means that you present children with a situation and you give them tools, but they actually have to create the solution. Harry Wong said in his book, Teaching, he who does the work does the learning. And that is a basic premise of my classroom. If you, as an educator, are doing all the work, it's not as meaningful for your students. Sorry. But if your students are doing the work, if your students are scratching their head, if your students are talking to each other and trying to figure out how anything, they're learning. And that's the thing that I love about project based is you know the teacher has an expectation of what should be attained, but in my classroom, how it's obtained can be different every time. And what the final outcome actually looks like yes, there will be a sales bazaar, but will it be with candles, or will it be with bracelets, or will it be with origami, or will it be with lessons in how to make origami? That's entirely up to my student group for that year. And every time it looks a little different because of the students. And every time the students learn the same things, but they learn it in their own way. I mean, that's just it. That's project based. The opposite of project based is the old style classroom lecture, where the teacher is in charge, is known as the sage on the stage. And the guide on the side is more of the project based learning. And that's what I always tried to be with. I'm there. I'm a resource for you if you need me, but you guys, you know what the problem is. Let me know how you figure out to solve it. Yeah.
Interesting. So, old way of educating, the sage on the stage,
Yeah.
the new way, the guide on the side. And that is project-based learning, and that
Yep.
is BizWorld's programs.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You said that so well. Thank you so much, Wendy. And so looking ahead at 2026, what's new? What's upcoming at BizWorld that you're excited about?
We are working on so many things. The This World Plus, again, the Dare to Fail. We were dreaming really big last year, and our timelines didn't quite hit where we wanted them to. So This World Plus is ready to roll, and we are going to be rolling it out, but it's going to continue to evolve. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited about. We're going to be working on higher levels, adding materials for middle school for BizWorld Plus, and adding materials for high school students for BizWorld Plus, and refining things along with teachers. We're going to build a teacher community where we ask people for input and feedback, and we plan to share those results with more teachers. So I'm really excited about that. That's the thing, that my new role, instead of being a classroom teacher, for me, the excitement in a classroom was sharing information with students and seeing what they do with it. And now my excitement is sharing this with teachers and seeing what they do with it, and seeing where we can grow this world and what it can become. So that for me is what's really exciting.
So excited. I'm so excited to hear it, or to see the program when it's released and to hear the feedback from
Yes.
educators
Yes.
also. Yeah, that's wonderful. Wendy, if you could leave us with one thing, maybe, right? If you could speak to an educator out there that is on the fence about giving BizWorld a try, what would you say to them?
This has been the hardest part of my job, is understanding why they're not all running and beating our door down. So I have to kind of refrain and at my enthusiasm and just say, give it a try. Your first time, it may not be as perfect as you wanted it to be. It may challenge you as a classroom teacher because it's messy, and it's not going to be what you plan in your front loading, may not be what actually happens. You may need an extra week, or you may have to get an extra material, or a resource person that you had planned for a venture capitalist may or may not come through. But I promise you, even doing it in its simplest form, it's still going to be amazing, not only for you, you will grow as a teacher, but also for your students. And to me, I mean, the whole fun of teaching is trying new things and imagining what can be. If you're going to do the same thing you've always done, that's that was boring to me. The reason I loved my gifted classroom is that I got to see my kids grow and change over the years, and I loved that. And I wouldn't dare have taught the same thing that I taught 20 years ago. And that includes this world. If this world had stayed the same for 20 years, it would not have worked for kids 20 years later in time. Children have changed. The technology has changed. I have so much technology in my BizWorld program now. We used to do live acting for their commercials. Now they record against a green screen and they edit and everything is so much high tech. They can create a web page. They can create all of these things that were not a thing when I started teaching it. And the curriculum has moved along with them. So just as our curriculum has continued to evolve, I would invite teachers personally in your profession, continue to evolve, try something different, reach out to me or to our company. We have people on board who will help you almost any time of day and with the most love and support you can imagine. There's no question you should not ask, and there's nothing we won't do to help you. So give it a try.
Wendy, thank you so much. It's really greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Amazing. Really, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Wonderful. I always like to ask actually at the end, is there anything that I didn't ask that I maybe should have? Anything that you wanted to share?
You have such good questions. The only thing maybe I would say is I would love for teachers who have used this world to reach out to me and let me see how we can connect in new ways to help this world grow. That's something that is on our list for 2026 is to build that teacher community. So I guess I would say to teachers out there, if you've already done BizWorld and you had an unsuccessful situation, reach out to me. And if you've had a successful situation, reach out to me. I want to hear from everyone who's using it, and let's see how we can grow this program into something even more amazing in 2026.